What do Falcons do? We rise up. Welcome to Rise Up Reactions, the show we talk all things Falcons, NFL, Georgia sports, and in general, the sports news of the day. I'm your host, Dr. Lee Denning, the Golden Hard Dog and a lifelong sports fan. Guys, it's been a little bit of a break for me. I was at a conference last week in the enemy's location, New Orleans. Definitely a city that is fun if you're into some of the things that are on Bourbon Street. I'm just not as much into that. So, not as fun of a trip for me in that regard. Definitely more business than pleasure, but had a lot of good food, so I do encourage going to New Orleans for the food. Other than that, it's full of Saints fans, so, too many of them wandering around. I did wear my Falcons hoodie here for being a season ticket holder, and got called out many a time. People saying I was being disrespectful just by wearing it. Got treated a little bit differently at some of the places I went to versus when I didn't have it on. So I don't know how Atlanta, the city, does like that. The perimeter of Atlanta, more where I live, we don't really do that to people. So New Orleans, get your crap together on treating people differently because of a team you don't like. But anyways, moving on. Falcons have made a few moves since we last spoke. Really to shore up some defensive shortcomings here. A lot of depth pieces. Let's start with Eddie Goldman coming out of retirement a second time. We brought on Eddie Goldman in 2022 to be a defensive tackle depth piece, potentially fight for a starting position, and he retired. He was on the team for all of, I think, 13 days and then retired. And then it came out that last year, Eddie Goldman going to come out of retirement to be on the team again. And he did not suit up for a single down. He did not really show up for training camp. So he is now, again, for the third year in a row, saying he is coming out of retirement to play for the Falcons. I will believe it when I see it on the field in preseason or even in game time, assuming he makes the roster. This is a guy who has not seen the field really since 2021. He got hurt in 2021, didn't play great. And then really the last time he played ball at a high level was 2018. So definitely a depth piece behind David Onyemata, behind Grady Jarrett. Heck, even behind Taquan Graham at this point, if we're going to keep him on the roster. But Eddie Goldman is a veteran presence. Last time we have any measurables on him, he was 6'4", 332 pounds. Guy who came out of the draft in 2015, he was a high-end second rounder. He played very well for the Chicago Bears for several years before falling off of a cliff, coming to Atlanta, but not coming to Atlanta. Been a really strange story with Eddie Goldman. I'm glad that he's on the roster for depth. That's about as good as I can say at this point because I just feel like we've been burnt by him 2 times already. Let's not make it 3, but let's see if he's even in football-ready shape. So Eddie Goldman coming in to shore up the defensive tackle position. Obviously, we have spent a ton of money on offense this year. We've gotten Darnell Mooney. We've traded for Rondell Moore. We have gotten Kirk Cousins, which is the big thing that we've done. So we don't have as much salary cap as we have, say, last year. But we still have had more than we did a couple years prior. There's still moves that I think we need to do to free up some space there. We are probably going to have to restructure a few deals to get to where we can sign off our rookies. But we'll see. We may even be trading back so we don't owe as much money to some of these rookies. So we'll see what ends up happening here. The next guy that we're bringing on, though, is a guy that's been kind of a rising starter for the Washington Commies, James Smith-Williams. When Montez Sweat and when, who was the other one they had? Can't remember. They took him number 1. Chase Young. When he wasn't playing, this guy was out there. He is an undrafted free agent from the 2020 draft. He's done okay for himself for an undrafted or for a 7th rounder. Sorry, I said undrafted, but he's a 7th rounder, picked 229 overall from the 2020 draft. He's actually done relatively well. PFF grades about a 60 every year, which again, PFF's not perfect, but if you're going to talk about production from somebody for the limited snaps they get, that's not bad for a 7th round pick. Now, we're bringing him in as an edge rusher. He has a total of, I think, 7 sacks over his career. He only had 1 sack last year. He has been okay in run defense, so I think we could mix him in some different spots. I don't think he's going to take the spot of either Zach Harrison or of Arnold Ebiketie. I think they should both be viewed as starters ahead of him. Some people see that a little different. I think both of them should be starters ahead. And I also still firmly believe that the Falcons are going to be taking an edge rusher at the number 8 overall selection in the draft. Or we're going to trade back and still take an edge rusher at pick 11, 12, or 13, depending on who we get to be a trade partner. I think there's probably about a 33% chance, or a 1 in 3 chance that we end up getting a trade partner to trade back, assuming the draft works out where a quarterback is available and some of these teams want to jump somebody else. I think that certainly makes sense. I just don't know who it's going to end up being, and we also could end up going corner, though that's another position we've done something with. But James Smith-Williams, solid depth piece. We'll see if he ends up being anything for the team. But definitely a rotational guy at this point. Should not be the every down starter for us. Another guy that we brought on, Antonio Hamilton, senior. He is a depth piece at corner for us. Signed him to a 1-year deal. He's been okay. He is a better coverage guy than he is in run defense. So I do look for him to be a guy that we put more on the slot receivers, something like that. Really not going to be playing a lot of run defense with him. And just looking back through how he's graded, he's really never graded great in run defense. He's done pretty well overall in the past. He had like 1 year in 2021 where he was graded higher in run defense than he was in pass, but for the most part, he's better in coverage. He's not particularly good at pass rush, which you don't expect that in a corner anyway. But he had an interception last year. He had 30 tackles last year. He was targeted 44 times, and he allowed 25 receptions. So not the worst in the world. We've had better pedigree, but again, is he going to supplant AJ Terrell? Absolutely not. Do I think Clark Phillips III is a better at this point in their careers? Yes. So solid depth piece. Not sure what we're going to do otherwise, though. I am a firm believer in CP3, so the fact that we brought on 2 corners in free agency, to me, means that we're probably not going to be drafting a corner. But speaking of the other corner, Kevin King, this is a guy that was highly, highly, highly drafted back in 2017. First pick in the 2nd round in 2017 by the Green Bay Packers. He has been plagued by injury. He took 2022 off to try and get healthy. And then, unfortunately, in training camp of 2023, he tore his Achilles. And he should be back from that, but he is in a more dynamic position than Kirk Cousins is going to be at quarterback with the same injury. He's a guy that we're going to depend on to make cuts, to really follow high-profile receivers. And he's played well whenever he's actually been on the field, but the last time that was really a thing for him was back in 2021. He was graded at 72 overall for run defense, 74.4 at pass rush, and 68.1 at coverage, which overall 70.6. That's not bad for a corner in this league. So again, a guy that's pretty highly touted from what, or at least has the pedigree. He's now about 7 years into the league, so we'll see what ends up happening with him. We'll see if he's recovered from this Achilles, and we'll see if he makes the final roster at this point. But somebody that I think has been plagued by injury, and again, it makes sense that we are adding to depth at corner, given that we've been burnt there in the past. But a guy who, as long as we're not asking him to play every single down, should be good as long as he's even somewhat back to healthy. If he's 85-90% back to where he was pre-Achilles injury, then I think we'll be okay with him. If he is somebody that's closer to like 60-70%, yeah, he's probably not going to make the final roster. But that's all I got for you. We've had a few other signings here. I don't know if I've talked about Storm Norton being re-signed. He's our swing tackle. He played remarkably well last year when we needed him. There was one game where we had 4 starting offensive linemen out, and it was like we never missed a beat, and he was a big reason for that. We re-signed Liam McCullough as the long snapper. Not my favorite move. I wish we brought Josh Harris back. That's just me. I love Josh Harris. He's a good guy. I know him personally from high school and from church back in the day. We went to the same church, went to the same high school. Just a really solid individual. And I call him a friend of the channel. He, will talk to me sometimes about different things with the NFL, his perspective as a player. We butted heads on that a time or two just as a fan and a player, but, he's really helped open me up to more of a player perspective. But, that's just my own personal biases there. We really haven't made a whole lot of other moves. It's the dead season for the NFL. I will probably do a couple of mock drafts just to put some stuff out there. But we really don't have a lot of news until there's news to talk about. The week of the draft, we'll probably have some things going on. But I am going to be live streaming the draft this year, guys. I tried last year. I'm going to do a quick live stream test probably in the next week or so just to make sure that everything's working at home from the home office. We do have poor internet streaming there, so we'll see how that ends up working out. But thank you to everybody for watching, liking, sharing, and subscribing. And as always, rise up.